Hello everyone, today we will be creating this simple transition. Just a bunch of circles going across the screen. It isn't too complicated and honestly it's one of the more easier things to do. Okay, so in order to get started, first of all, we're going to create a material and we're going to call this UI circle scale in. Okay, and we're going to create a widget blueprint out here. I keep going there for some reason. User widget, WB circle transition, open that up, plug that there, and overlay, put that there, get the border, put that there, stretch all the way, take your material, convert it into user interface, and if you want to show your border, just select border over here so you can see your texture. Go back here, take your material to whatever you named it. I named it circle UI circle scale in. Cool. Now we can actually start animating. So we're gonna need three things. First of all is my de facto standard whenever it comes to testing UI. It's the time into frag. So I'm gonna set that to 1. We set that to 1. If we start previewing this, you can see that it goes from 0 to 1. This is very good if you're testing for transitions and you just need something to move across the screen just for testing purposes. Alright, next we're actually going to create the UVs. So we're going to need not texture coordinate because this would actually stretch if you had a your shapes will actually stretch, so that's not what we want. So what we need is the green aligned UVs, and we're gonna use this part over here. Okay, first we're gonna create the repeating UVs, not by dividing it but by multiplying it. It's not that multiply into a frag node yet again and into another reroute declaration, and I'm gonna call these UVs. Okay, so what does this do? Okay, very clearly, frag takes anything, any number, and remaps it to 0 to 1. So if we take a 10 here and we start previewing this, you'll see that it goes from 0 to 1 roughly about 10 times, scaled by whatever screen size we have. If we set this to 1, it'll just set it to 1 multiplied by how many our screen size dimensions. Okay, cool. This gives us the repeating texture we need, and we're gonna feed that into our circle. Next, we're gonna need the visibility mask to actually wipe across the screen and give us that nice transition. So we take this, and depending on your direction, if I preview this, if you like your transition to be horizontal like mine, use the R channel. Vertical, use the G channel, the green channel. The blue doesn't really have anything. So I like mine horizontal, so I'm going to stick to the R channel. I'm going to multiply this by some number. And this is kind of like my favorite thing to do when it comes to creating these bands. It's a seal divide combo. So you put that into a ceiling and you put that into a divide. So what does this do? It creates this nice banding over here, and if we set both the multiply and divide to the same number, we create this very wonderful banding. Now why are we doing this banding? Well, if we did this via the normal gradient, your circles that sit in the middle of any of the transitions would be irregular shaped. So you'd have something like a triangle where the left side of your sphere is so small and your right side of your sphere is so big that it looks very disfigured. By having it flat like this in the banding, we ensure that whenever a circle sits inside this, it is the same size no matter where this transition is. So that's why we're doing this whole thing. Okay, and if we were to 1 minus this kind of just flips it around. And finally, we can feed that into a reroute declaration, and I'm gonna call this the visibility mask. Cool. Now that we have all of the variables at play, it's time to actually piece it all together. To actually start, let's get our visibility mask. And we add our time debugging. We preview this, kind of see that our animation is starting to take shape. If we were to lerp this, I think this might be negative 1.5 to 1.5. Yeah, there we go. Now it goes across the full screen. Okay, so that's cool. We're gonna need another version of this, but before that, I'll just carry on with the shader. We're gonna duplicate this later just for creating the other half. You know, the one that wipes away. So this wipes into the. We have another one that wipes away. Before that, before I get carried away, let's start with the circles. So easiest way to create a circle is to take a radial exponential. If we preview this, we get this nice, wonderful gradient. And the density to about 100. I kind of like mine with a very sharp crease. Cool. Now, if we actually feed the UVs where it has to be, we should get our repeating texture here. Very nice, wonderful. Just gonna scale that up. So if I set it to my screen size, 1920 1080, it looks perfect. No disfiguration. Okay. And finally, our radius is just that. Wonderful. Now we do have this kind of weird artifact at the start, and that's because our number is clearly going above 0 and 1. So an easy fix for this is to just saturate it. There we go. Very cool. Now we can use this time debugging node, which later on we will swap out for a variable that we will modify via code, and we can do stuff here. So if we want to slow down the animation, you know, we think that there's something wrong, and I want to see it in better clarity. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so now that we have the transition in, we're gonna need the transition out, so which is the other side of this. So basically taking the same thing over here, feed that into that. We're gonna need the saturate node as well. Give some space here, and we're gonna just simply subtract it, but we're gonna need to delay this just a tiny wincy bit. So I'm gonna subtract this by some amount. If I start previewing this, oops, I think we have to feed this via after. There we go. We get that little 1 second delay. And now if we feed that into the subtract node, start previewing and start previewing this, there we go. We get that. Oh, that's actually a very cool effect. I've not actually seen that displayed right there. This one gives us more time or duration for us to kind of animate in, so that we don't get any of that jumpy animation. Let's increase the delay so that we can actually see it, and you know, that looks really wonderful. Again, we'll be controlling the out transition later via code. Finally, if we start previewing this one, oh, we're still using the old one. Wonderful. Look at that. It's all coming together. All right. To finally visualize it here in our circle transition, we're gonna need to turn this from opaque to not surface, from opaque to translucent. Then we're gonna feed that there and feed that there. Awesome. Going back inside here, we can see our transition working wonderfully. Awesome. In order to change the color, because that's something we all want to do, take your vertex color, which is, I believe it is brush color, or it could be tint. Either way, this gets fed into here. We can multiply that and feed that into the final color. Ah, there we go. We get the nice little colors that we want. And obviously, you know, for transitions, so I usually set mine to full black. Wonderful. Okay, now it's time to actually wrap everything up via code. Okay, back in our shader here, we're gonna swap out all the time debug nodes for, you know, actual variables. So let's get rid of that, get rid of that. If I set this to 1, or rather if we press S straight away to scalar, transition in, and we'll have one more over here, transition out. Cool. If that's the case, we no longer need this subtract because we were using that for time manipulation. Very cool. But if we set our transition into 0.5, just to kind of test to see it is working halfway through the screen, at full. And if we did this for transition out, halfway through the screen, and 0. And 1, sorry. Wonderful. Now everything is working as intended. Let's set everything back to 0 and let's head back into our code. Okay, back in our designer, make sure you set your border to a variable so that we can access it via code. And I'm just going to name this to something more appropriate. Transition. Okay. Heading back into our graph. The way you access material parameters via code in UI is get dynamic material. This is how we're going to do it. Right? So let's do a custom event. Misspelled that. I'm just going to say init. Convert into a variable. Get it. Set scalar parameter by value. Now it's a scalar because, you know, there's only one number. If we had other numbers, like if you wanted to change, you know, like if you had a custom color inside here, you would use set vector parameter by value, and that gives you your color. The variable name is whatever this is, so take that, feed into that, and just so that we can see it in the inspector, I'm going to turn this into a variable. Testing transition in. Cool. We're going to need to feed this into pre-construct so that this actually works. Init. And for it to actually work in game, we're gonna have to use construct as well. Now let's see if this works. Wonderful. So now we can change the variable here and it will go 0 to 1 across the screen. Wonderful. To actually have this animate, there are multiple ways for you to do it. I think the most popular way is to use the timer. I'm not particularly a fan of it because it's just very unwieldy, but I guess I can just show you how to do it anyway. There we go. Now we have it working. Now the way I personally do it is via through a paid plugin. Yeah, I know it's paid. That's why I showed you this method. But if you have XiTween, it saves you a lot of time. So if I was to do this via the tweening method, all I have to do is voila. Wonderful. It's flying by a bit too fast for my liking, but there we go. Wonderful. To actually transition out, you basically want the same thing. I'm just gonna do it after a delay, so I'm just gonna feed a delay inside here of maybe 1 second. After 1 second, we should see our screen again. And we do. Wonderful. If you'd like to change the actual shape of your shader, you can go ahead and go inside of here, and whatever you feed the UVs to will eventually be your shape. So what I have is this is a custom material function. It's basically a square because for some reason Unreal Engine doesn't allow me to make squares very easily. if I was to feed this, if I was to set this to 0.5, you kind of see that I'm using squares now, and that's really, that's wonderful. So whatever this is your shape. As long as it's something that can fill up the entire screen, when it goes from 0 to 1, you're good to go. And that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Post unscripted logic here. I know I said that the plugin here is paid, but I'm not sponsored by them. I just really have used this plugin so heavily throughout my time in testing. If I am to pull up one of my older stuff, this is kind of an animation I did when I was trying to recreate some UI for practice. Kind of cool. Even this one, I think you'll recognize where this UI is coming from. If I open it up and I show you how everything's done, yeah, it gets a lot. But the cool thing about all of this is that when I'm using this, it's a fire and forget. So I'll just scale, forget about it. Fade, forget about it. Fade. So it's just encapsulated into one function and it all runs. I don't have an update loop. I don't have a keeping track of many variables. All of them just kind of go through one single variable and I just fire and forget. And with so many to choose from here, it's a no-brainer, right? Again, I'm not sponsored, but I just really love this, especially when it comes to transitioning of UI. Yeah, that's about it.